Welcome to Behind the Logics, the repository of knowledge. In last video, we have seen about errors and exceptions. In this video, we will be seeing about user input, output formatting and type conversion in detail. In previous videos, we just defined a variable and used it. What if we need to get an input from the user? To get inputs from the user, we go for input function. When we use the input function, the program waits for the user input and then it will resume once the input is entered. Let us look at some examples for the same. Let us type name, that is a variable, and we are using input function here. Within the input function, we are typing enter your name as argument. Then we are using print. Your name is. Now let's run the code. And we have to input the value inside that enter your name. I'm typing it as RJ and we got our output as your name is RJ. So what happened here is we use input function to get the value from user. What we have given inside the input function will be displayed in the output. So after entering the input value, our output is printed in the next line. That's what happened here. The default data type of the value that is acquired from the input function is string. That is, input of any type is converted implicitly to string type. To get the values of other data types as input, we can specify the type of input we need while getting it, or we use type conversion after getting it. Let's see an example in which we get input of integer type. Let us specify the data type as int and type input. Then print entered value number. Now let's run the code and give the input value as 5. We got the output as we printed like entered value 5. What happens if we enter a string for the input like A, B, C and run the code? It shows value error as we have specified the input type as integer and entered a string value. The same will happen if we enter a float value instead of integer. Shall we look at another example for inputting a value, but this time a float? Let us specify the input data type as float and type input. Then print entered value, mention it as number, and let's run the code. Now let us give the value in float as 5.6. So we got our output. It works fine for a float input. Let's try with an integer input. Let us type 9. And yeah, we got our output. It won't throw up an error as it does before because it converts the integer input to float type implicitly as they both are compatible for the conversion process. So let us give a string value now, like some XYA. It gives us value error when we enter a string as it's not a compatible type for implicit conversion. We'll get to know more about the type conversion in some time. Next, we'll be seeing about taking multiple inputs from user. For most cases, we need to get multiple inputs in single line. In other languages, it's possible in usual input methods but not in Python. In Python, we use split method or list comprehension method for taking multiple inputs in one line. What is split method? Split breaks the given input by the specified separator. If a separator is not provided, then white space is the separator. Let's quickly jump into an example. Here I type x, y is equal to input, enter two values, split, then print first value x and in the next line print second value as y. And let's run the code. Now give some values like 2, 3. So we got two inputs in a line and printed them separately. In next example, we take three values as x, y, z. So now we can give three values as 2, 3, 4 and let's run the code. We got our input in separate lines as we printed by using split method. When we enter two values instead of three, say I type 1, 2, it shows value error, stating that not enough values to unpack. Next, we will be seeing about list function. When we need to get multiple values at a time, like more than 2 or 3 values, we use list function to typecast them and store. We can access the values in the way as we access the list elements. So, we type x is equal to list map int. We get the input value in integer. And input, enter multiple values. And we are using split method. The input we get should be split and stored as list. That's what it means. And print x and print x of 0. And let's run the code. So we can enter as many values as we want. So I'm entering here multiple values. So the list of values we have entered will be printed in the first line as we have mentioned as print list of values. In the second line we get the first value of the input we have entered as we have mentioned print x of 0, which means the first value that we have entered. Next is list comprehension. List comprehension is an elegant way to define and create list in Python. We can also use it for getting multiple inputs from the user. Let's see an example for list comprehension now. So I have taken two values as x, y, int x for x in input, enter two values using split method. Print first value in the first line and print second value in the second line. That's what I have mentioned. So in this we have got two inputs in a line and printed them separately. Now in the next example, I'm taking one value as a x and in input I'm mentioning it as enter values and print list of values, which means I can get multiple inputs from the user. So let's run the code. So I'm entering multiple inputs and printed them using list comprehension. Next we'll be seeing about output formatting. As you all know, we have used print function to display the output to the user. This print function can take multiple arguments and we'll see them one by one. Let us print behind the logics and run the code. We got our output. Simple. This is how we use the print function usually. How can I print each word in a new line? We use \n for that. So I'm adding \n before each word and let's run the code. So here I got my output in separate line. So we have printed each word in a line. What if we want to print multiple statements in one line? By using int parameter, we can display multiple statements in a line. Let me print behind end is equal to, that is how we use int parameter. So I'm using int parameter in each line. but I got my output in a single line behind the logics. Though we have used multiple print statements, we got the output in one line. We have given space as the value to the end argument. We can use other values as well, like print behind the logics and hashtag, and run the code. So we have got hash at the end. Let's see how to separate a single line into multiple. We can use separator argument to specify how we want to separate a statement. Let me print behind the logics using sep, that is a separator function, and within the sep argument I am using \n so that it separates each word and print them in separate line. Let's specify another value to separator argument and see what happens. Let me print behind the logics, and within the sep argument I am typing double hashtag and run the code, and we got our output, and between every word we have our hashtag which we have mentioned in the separator argument. Whatever values we give in the separator argument will get added between the values we want to be printed. Next we will be seeing about format method. The format method allows you to format selected parts of a string. Users use curly braces to mark where a variable will be substituted and can provide detailed formatting directives. But the user also needs to provide the information to be formatted. Let me give an example. Print hello from name format name as BTL team and run the code. We got our output as hello from BTL team. The name has been formatted to BTL team. Let's see another example. Let me give some values for x and y as x is 5, y is 6, and print the value of x is and y is inside curly braces format xy, and print the value of x is 0 and y is 1 format xy, and print the value of x is 1 and y is 0 and format xy, and let's run the code and see what happens. In the first line we got the value of x and y as it is as we have given. In the second line we have printed the x value in 0th position and y value in 1th position. In the third line we have given the x value in the 1th position and y value in the 0th position, that is the value of x and y is swapped. Now let's see how to use format for numbers. Let us print colon dot 2f within curly braces. So it means the value has to be round up to 2 decimal points. That's what it means. And dot format gives some values, and let's run the code. So this float value which we have given has been rounded up to 2 decimal places as we have specified 2f. So in this example we are making the total string size, that is including digits and points, at least 9. So let us type 0 greater than 9 format So what does 0 greater than 9 means is fill with zeros to the left. So let's run the code. And a total including the decimal point we have got 9 digits and 0 has been filled to the left. That is what 0 greater than 9 means. So if we type 0 less than 9, the zeros will get filled to the right. Let me give you another example. Print. Now we use commas as 1000 separator and give some numbers within the format argument, and let's run the code. Hence we got our output. Next we'll see about type conversion. Type conversion is nothing but converting a value from one type to another. It is done in two ways: implicit conversion and explicit conversion. First, we will be seeing about implicit type conversion. The Python interpreter automatically converts one data type to another without any user involvement in the case of implicit type conversion. Let us see an example for this. Let me give a value for x in integer and y in float. X is 10 and y is some 20.2, and print type of x as type x and print type of y as type y. Let us calculate it by giving x is equal to x plus y and print x. So print type of x after adding y as type of x. So here we are adding an integer with float. Now let's run the code, and we have got the type of x which we have given as integer and type of y as float, and the value of x plus y is 30.2, and the value of x after adding x plus y, that type is float. So let me explain this. Float data type is bigger than integer type. That is why while adding an integer and a float, we get the output in float. Values won't get cut in float type, so it gets converted to float type by default. Next we see about explicit type conversion. In case of explicit type conversion, the data type is manually changed by the user as per their requirements. Let us see some example for this. Let me type n is equal to 10010, some binary numbers, and print int base 2. Int n comma 2, and let's run the code. So int base 2 is 18. That is, here we are converting binary to decimal. We use n comma 2 for converting binary to decimal. Next we are converting float to integer. Let me give a float value for x as 5.2 and print float to integer, and let's run the code. So the value after the point will be disappeared, means float is converted to integer. We got the whole number. Next we convert string to integer. Let's give a value of y as 5 and print string to integer int y. Let's run the code. We got our output. If we have give a number as string, it gets easily converted to integer. If we give a word as string and try to convert to integer, then it shows value error. Next we are converting an integer to float. Print e is equal to 234 and print float value float e. Let's run the code. We got float value 234.0. 0 is a decimal point and a 0 is added as we are converting an integer into float. Similarly, if we keep 234 as a string value, it gets easily converted to float. But if we pass a word as a string and try to convert it to float, then it shows value error. Next, let me type a is equal to 3 and print integer to string. So string a, and let's run the code, and we got our output as 3. When we try to convert an integer to string, the value won't get changed. It will be the same. Next, we convert a character to integer. For that, we use ORD, odd function. There will be an ASCII value for a. So it will be converted to that value. So let's run the code and see what's the ASCII value for a. It is 97. Next, we are converting an integer to character. So let me give a value for a as 98 and print integer to ASCII character, and CHR. That is what we use to convert an integer to character. And let's run the code. The ASCII character equivalent to number 98 is B. Next, we are converting an integer to hexadecimal. For this, we use hex function. Let me give a value for h as 56 and print integer to hexadecimal, and using the hex function. Let me run the code. Hence we got our output. Next, we are converting an integer to octal value. For this, we use OCT, oct function, and print integer to octal using oct function. And let me run the code. And hence we got our output here. And that's all for today's video. We'll be seeing you with another interesting topic next week. Please do subscribe our channel for more videos. Also do press bell icon for getting notifications for our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.